So, Dr. Sandler,
Sir.
you can cure depression and anxiety.
Yeah. I just gave a little talk about what a wall psychology.
So, as I said at the end of our previous episode, that we'll be talking about the unconscious, and that's what we'll be doing this time. So, Dr. Sandler, what I said at the closing of our previous episode was that one of the reasons that you can cure people or help people is that because you are going into the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding was that that's an essential process to really help. If you don't do that, then you cannot really take away the problem.
Well, this is the heart of so-called dynamic therapy.
Dynamic.
In other words, all the offshoots of Freud's original work are called dynamic psychotherapy. And the idea is, of course, we have to get to the unconscious. People come in and say, I have depression, I want to get over this, I hate this.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes unconscious thoughts and feelings that are in the way.
So what is the unconscious?
Well, if I can give you an example,
All right, yeah.
explained by an example. I mean, simply, of course, they're just parts of the mind, thoughts, and feelings that we don't want to deal with because they're painful. A fellow comes in and he's badly depressed and he wants to get well. He's sick of being depressed for years and years. But as we work our way through therapy, he discovers that there is a part of him that fights against getting well, what Freud called the resistance, and all of it is unconscious until finally he realizes that his mother is badly depressed and always has been, and he feels a sense of loyalty to her, and this is the only way they bond together. They have this bond of depression and suffering, and she's an isolated woman. This is her social life, is her son. He goes to visit. And so he discovers in psychotherapy that there's a strong pull to stay depressed and keep mom company in her depression. If he gets well, it feels like he's abandoning his mother. So the day he comes in for treatment, all of this is invisible to me and him both. And that's why I say, and any dynamic therapist would say this, you have to look at the unconscious motivations, not just what consciously lies on the surface.
So if I say that, if my wife yells at me and, I'm going to work and I say I don't want to think about it, that's not putting it in the unconscious. That is something different. This is a more complicated business.
What you're talking about is called suppression. It's a very, very healthy defense mechanism, which just says, I have to go to work, I have to focus on my job.
Right.
I can't really focus on the argument I had with my spouse
Right.
over breakfast.
Yeah.
That's actually a healthy thing.
That's suppression, yeah.
Put that aside temporarily.
Okay.
Right.
And
this is something that this man I'm talking about did not consciously say, I'm going to put this in the back of my mind. He has no idea that he's done that.
Is that what, in psychodynamic terms, they use the word repression? Is more an unconscious process that is different from suppression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suppression is a conscious choice, and repression is it got pushed to the back.
You're not even aware of that.
I don't know what happened.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Okay.
I think a lot of therapies now are not dealing with the unconscious because Freud has been cast out. And when I lecture to students and younger therapists, I say, if you think you're going to do psychotherapy and neglect the unconscious, you're going to get in trouble. Because there's a whole layer of invisible material that you're not going to see.
And how does it get invisible? What is what prevents you, and why does you have to go through a 2-year therapy course? To get into the unconscious? What's holding?
Oh, the defense mechanisms.
Of
course, there's all these defenses put in place so that one doesn't have to deal with all this painful emotion and painful cognition, painful thoughts.
Okay. So on that note, I think the next thing what we should be talking about is defense mechanisms.
I think that's a great idea.
All right. We'll stop here. So defense mechanisms. They are the things that stop a therapist from getting into the patient's unconscious mind. And tackling with them is a very complicated business. And in order to start talking about the process, we'll start with a case. The case of Carla from Steve's book, Tea with Freud.